Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve podcast takes a close-up look at controversial subject matter and hot-button topics, adding humor, cynicism, and a dose of reality to the stuff we're not supposed to talk about anymore. Politics, religion, sex, gender identity, violence, corruption. Nothing is left unturned in this lighthearted approach to information dissemination. The world is experiencing a pandemic of cowardice. 80% of people do not believe the craziness they've been coerced to agree with. Grab a friend, grab a beverage, and dive in with us as we take on the narrative and blast social stigmas with truth. Here are your hosts, Patriots Ray Amanat and Steve Reed.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're at in TV land, social media land, Traverse Media out here, or Traverse TV in Florida, as well as the OBBM Network. Welcome to Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve. I'm Ray Amanat here in sunny, well, it's kind of rainy today, but Port Richey, Florida. It's still not snowing. And of course, my co-host, Mr. Steve Reed, somewhere in an undisclosed outhouse in northern Texas, hiding amongst his other chickens, trying to wake America up. Steve, how you doing?
How you doing? I'm doing well, Ray.
Oh my gosh!
You will never.
That's a creepy way of saying that.
You will never live that down. So I'm doing wonderful.
It sounds like you are a marketing genius, which I'll have to get together with you later on and see what you're doing to get all of these extra friend requests via social media posts on Facebook and hopefully on awesome. Truth Social and all the other ones as well.
Yeah. Yep. So Ray, anything exciting happening?
Well, we have an exciting show today. We've got a speaker. We have a speaker and author of What Lies Beneath and However Long Forever, Mr. Stephen Cohen. His wife, Courtney, was not able to make it, but they both co-founded the Now Foundation that is based out of Texas. That's your neck of the woods. Steve Cohen, welcome to Taboo Talk. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to learn more about what your story is. So can you share your story of how you went from an atheistic, anti-Christ to who you are today?
Yeah, so most of my story actually starts when I was about 6 years old. I had a cat, just like so many kids actually have their childhood pet. Well, this cat was actually in my crib, and I'd grown up with her. And one day I came home from school and I found her underneath my brother's dresser, and something was different. Now, I don't know why I did it. I didn't grow up in a religious household, but I sat there and I prayed just a very simple 6-year-old prayer. God, heal my Kissy. Her name came from the fact that she used to basically try to lick your skin off with that really rough sandpaper tongue that cats have. And, it was that. I really didn't think much more of that prayer. And I just remember 2 days later, I heard my parents' car door shut. And I ran over to my brother's window, looked out the window, out the driveway, and my parents were carrying a box. And I was utterly destroyed. Because in that shoebox size box was my cat, was Kissy. So at that moment in my life, I believe that either God can't hear us, doesn't care about us, or he simply doesn't exist. And for the next 21 years, that's how I lived my life, was as if there was no God. And even if there was a God, because there were some times where I thought about that, I wanted to have nothing to do with a God like that. Fast forward to 2002, and man, God had been wooing me for years. He pulled me out of a gang lifestyle in the late 90s, put me in Missoula, Montana, spoke to me a little bit there, took me to Atlanta, reconciled my relationship with my father, which wasn't a great one up until that point. Did some great things there, and then brought me back to Texas. And it was, man, probably for a good 6-month time period. It's crazy. I saw this number right over here, 11:34 on an alarm clock. And if you flip that over, it actually says hell. So here I am, an atheistic antichrist, seeing 11:34 on the alarm clock twice a day, almost every day. I mean, it just kind of rocked my world. There was so much uncertainty, so many difficult things that I couldn't reconcile with. And eventually I just came to the point where one of my coworkers, I knew he was a Christian. He had been loving on me. He'd been kind of just walking with me. And I asked him to borrow a Bible. I didn't know that was taboo for Christians. You can't borrow Christians' Bibles. So he went out and actually just bought me a brand new one, right? Told me to go read John. And man, I went home and I read Matthew, gave my life to Christ at that moment, fell in love with the God that I thought I hated, the God that I thought didn't exist. Exactly. Exactly. So that's how, I mean, this transition, I mean, that's just a short synopsis of 26 years.
Well, I wonder how many people that go through traumas where they say, God, why me? Why didn't you save or help me in this tragic moment in my life? And they question their faith. You know, police officers, firefighters, military vets, they all question their faith because of what they see when it's cleaning up a car accident and you have a family that's dead because of that, or just like you, whether it's a pet or anything, and how that affects your psyche and your faith. And is there a higher power, and why was that higher power not there for me? Steve, I know you're chomping at the bit to kind of answer some of this. Let's give it to you.
So are you, just a clarification,
Steve,
which Steve
Reed. I forgot. I got two Steves here
today.
So we'll go Steve C when Mr. Cohen. I'll just call you Mr. Cohen.
That sounds great.
Actually, before we go there, Steve, have you figured out, I hope you did, why you never take somebody else's Bible? That's taboo. Now I switched several years ago over from using my Bible that I've been using since the early 80s. And I had 2 or 3 others prior to that, but I found one I really like. So it is filled with notes and underlines and highlights and so forth and so on. So now I'm using my iPad and my phone, and sometimes my computer, but to take that away, I mean, that's kind of like part of my journal.
Yeah, it's actually taboo to take somebody's journal to go off your
it is
taboo top.
It is. So you know, no, you can't have that.
Yep.
So I'll buy you one.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't even know you were allowed to actually write or highlight or put anything in the Bible. So
yeah. Well, I didn't until I became a Christian myself.
Yeah.
So all right. So you and Courtney started an organization that is not newfound, it is now found.
Yep.
And actually, when you and I met a couple of weeks ago, I saw your banner, and my first thought was newfound. And then I started, no, that's not it. And then I heard some things about adoption, and I'm thinking, okay, this is related to kids that have come out of trafficking and they are now found. That was my initial thought, but that's not what you do. So how did you start nowfound.org?
So Nowfound is a ministry we've had almost 21 years, a little bit over 21 years now. And it was shortly after I came to Christ and fell in love, like I said, with the God that I thought I hated. I had this misconception about who God was. I was walking through the lobby of a church in Grapevine, Texas. And as I'm walking through, God just meets me in there and he said, Steve, I love that you are now found. But I need you to remember that you were once lost, and how that felt, how you treated people, how they treated you, how this whole thing worked. And it was at that point where I felt like God gave me this vision, the never too lost to be found. I had to raise it up over my name tag there. So never too lost to be found. And it just gives us this viewpoint. I actually started Once Lost Now Found Ministries, but that was way too long for my email address. So oncelostnowfoundministries.com is just too much. So we shortened it down to nowfound.org. But the heart of it, of being never too lost to be found, is being able to look at every other person in this world with this mindset. And when we do, it starts breeding compassion and empathy and love. It's what Jesus does. It's what God does. He loves his kids. First commandment, when Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? He says, what? Love your God with all your heart, mind, soul, right? So, and then the second is equal to that. That means that these two things are the same in power and strength, was to love others as you love yourself. So you look at that, it didn't say condemn the world. It didn't say call out everybody's sins. It didn't say, beat people over the head with your Bible. It said to love God and love people. And that's part of what we do. We actually reorient people to God. This is our vision and mission, is to reorient people to God, so that they take their responsibility or their relationship with God, and take responsibility for that relationship and with those he's put in their presence. That's the vision of it.
So with that, we'll get back to this topic after we do a brief break, where you can continue explaining to everyone what the mission statement of Now Found is after this break.
And we'll take a break. So Ray, how are you doing?
That's what I want. Latch on as soon as you can, make it hard. If I stand on one leg, can you yank me off balance? Yeah. If I stand feet wide, can you pull me off balance? Come on, what's the matter with you? How you doing? What was the first thing she did? She walked away. She took her eyes off of me. She looked away. I take her purse. I run. She goes to security. She goes to law enforcement. They're going to say, well, what did he look like? And you're going to be like, it happened so fast. I didn't see him coming. You didn't see him coming because I made you feel uncomfortable. And you took your eyes off me and walked away. The whole point is, and this does not mean I want you to go and flirt and talk to the person, or I don't want you to go, I see you. I just want you to, that's a cool shirt. I'd like to get that because my kids are in soccer. I'm letting you know I'm aware of you. I'm letting you know I can describe you. Now you know why he says, how you doing?
That's awesome.
So as far as Heroes in Action is concerned, we are a nonprofit organization. We do lectures and seminars empowering people or educating people on how not to be victims of bullying, violence, or human trafficking. We try to educate families, businesses, churches, church groups on what's a plan of action and what's an exit strategy to keep yourself and your family safe. The QR code that you're seeing takes you to our website where you can make a one-time or recurring donation, which is how we keep our seminars and lectures going. If you can't see it because you're on an audio blog, just go to heroesinaction.us and hit the donate now button, and you can make any type of donation that would help us keep the lights on and continue providing lectures and seminars on safety for the general public. Back to you, Steve.
We need to emphasize .us.
Heroesinaction.us. That is correct.
Not .org or anything else. It's .us. So the other people, I was all set to make a $5,000 donation to one of those other organizations, Ray, and it. So anyway, I'm joshing.
I know.
Before we go any further, though, And I normally do this disclaimer. This has nothing to do with you personally, Steve, but we do have to put up our disclaimer. This is an opinion-based program. It is based in fact, and not necessarily the opinions or views of our guest sponsors, advertisers, affiliates, or anybody else. So this is our opinion, but again, we base this in fact. So there, disclaimer done. Ray, are you
Thank
happy?
you.
We
I'm
are.
very happy. And we're
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
Every organization has a mission statement. What is Now Found's mission statement?
Yeah, so that's the mission statement or the vision was kind of what I was getting to right before we went to the commercial break. Was we're a catalyst to really reorient people's lives to so that they will see everything, paying attention to God in everything that they're doing, and that we're going to encourage and equip and develop people and disciple people into taking responsibility for their relationship with God and those people that He has placed around them. And everything that we do, our children's books, the What Lies Beneath the book that I wrote, everything is pointing back to looking for God in every single moment, every single thing that's actually happening, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. You were saying earlier about so often we look at things and go, well, where's God in this? I would challenge people, instead of saying, God, where are you? To simply say, God, where are you? Instead of looking at this guilt-ridden, this offended place, look at it in this desperate place of, God, show me where you are, instead of holding things against Him.
You know, as a side to that, we have all heard on news broadcasts somebody is interviewed after a shooting or after some kind of catastrophe, calamity, whatever, and the people are always saying, "Well, where was God in that?" Well, let's see. Back in the '60s, you kicked God out of schools. Back in the '70s, you decided that it was cool and it was perfectly all right to kill babies in a mother's womb. So you've been doing everything you possibly can to sanitize, from your perspective, the world from God. But now, when you need God, you say, "Where was God?" Well, you asked Him to leave, and He is a gentleman, and He left, and He took His hands off of you. So, how do you relate to those kinds of things when you're working with somebody? But then also, as a follow-up, when you're done with that, you got to tell us about the 1134 movement. So first, how do you handle those people that say, "Where was God in that?" and go from there?
So my kind of that rephrasing of the posture is, I love hearing from God. I love having conversations with the Holy Spirit. I love taking that intimate relationship that He and I have. I used to think that if there was a God, that He was so far removed that He couldn't hear us or didn't care about us, right? But when you look at everything, I've learned so much. I've come into this beautiful relationship with Him that I want to encourage people to ask themselves. So I've been in so many different prayer ministries and prayer movements and everything else where people are like, "Steve, I need you to pray for me." No. I will agree with you in prayer, but what I want to do is I want you to pray. I want you to turn your life back to Him and go, "Okay, God, where are you? Right now I'm hurt. I'm offended. I'm lost. I'm not sure of anything right now. So instead of trying to have me speak on God's behalf, why don't you actually go to Him directly?" And that's one of the best ways I think that we can encourage people to either establish and form a relationship with Him or deepen their relationship. That in those troubled times, in those hard times, and I would even say in the celebrations, go, "God, what do you say about this? Where are you at in this?" And instead of, "God, how do I get out of this?" I love the mindset of, "God, what do I get out of this? Not how, but what do I get out of this trouble? So this trial, this difficult time that I'm in."
It's funny, and then we want to get back to that question of the 1134 movement, but the more we get into what we do and the more we share our message to people. The other day I had a new client come in and I just was interviewing him to learn more about him because I try to vet everybody that I teach, make sure I'm not training a future terrorist or bully or whatever. And it went a whole different direction by some of the questions that I was asking where he broke down and just started unloading and crying his eyes out. And he's like, there's a reason I was sent here. There's a reason why. So when you're saying you're searching for God, and if they come to you or me or Steve or anyone that has a message to share to help people, that is where to find God. That's God's way of saying, hey, I'm sending you here to get the help that you need, to get the guidance that you need to help heal, to put pieces back together. So, thank you for being one of those angels of God, I guess, that help people out.
Thanks. Yeah. So it's interesting you were saying about how people get sent. I don't believe that there's any such thing as coincidence. A good buddy of mine always said that coincidence and luck have been trying to steal God's thunder since the beginning of time. That we say, oh, well, you're so lucky, or, oh, what a coincidence. No, I don't believe so. I think that we really do need to look at those things and go, God, what are you doing here? I just before this interview here, this time here, I was talking with somebody where her kids got sick. She wasn't able to actually go and have a meeting with somebody. Well, at today's meeting, I felt it was so important. Part of our initiatives is actually supplying foster and adoptive families with resources. We've got 3 children's books. Well, I brought those books with us to this meeting. And in the middle of this meeting, she starts telling me that she's about to go meet with a foster mom who has a need. And I felt like I'm supposed to give her these books. One of our initiatives is we're trying to give away 200 children's books this month as part of National Adoption Awareness Month. That's what November is. So I'm sitting there. Her kids get sick. It delays her meeting this young woman. And in the meantime, I show up with some additional resources for this foster mom. And I'm like, we have to look at this and go, God, what are you doing in every single moment? Not God, why are my kids sick? God, why are my kids sick? Like, what are you doing here? What can I look for? Because you're going to get glory in everything, as long as I'm looking for it and really desiring to see what he's doing and where he's moving and where he's going.
So we can combine our resources. Instead of 3 children's books, you can have 7. Because I've got 4 children's books that we can add to your list.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
All right, 1134.
Yeah. So 1134, like I said earlier, for about 6 months, I saw this time on the clock. Man, I'd wake up to it. And yes, I would wake up somewhere around 11:30 in the morning, 11:34 in the morning. Most of the time, I'd maybe go into bed somewhere around that time, but I would see it constantly. And there I am, an atheistic antichrist, and I'm seeing hell all the time. And it started messing with my mind. Well, I come to Christ. I come into a relationship with him. I submit my life to him, and you would think I would stop seeing it. I don't. I start actually seeing it more often. It starts being on receipts, on billboards, it was everywhere. Even I flew late last year and went to a Chick-fil-A and walk up there, and 1134 is the cash register's ID. And I'm like, it's everywhere. So I'm seeing it. I'm like 10 years into this thing. Because I'm kind of slow sometimes. I don't know if you can relate. And I'm like, God, what the hell? Why am I seeing this everywhere? Am I saved? Am I not? Are you God? Am I not? Like, did I believe in the wrong God? What's going on? And he actually took me to a scripture reference, 1 Corinthians 13:4. 1, 3, 4. And it talks about love. Love is patient. Love is kind. It's enduring. It doesn't boast. It doesn't or hold judgment. All these beautiful things of what love is and what isn't, what it does and it doesn't do. And I'm sitting there just like, I'm just, dumbfounded how I could possibly miss that reference. But he sat there and he goes, Steve, that whole time that you hated me, that whole time that you thought you were so far from me, I loved you. Just like every one of my other children. You can kick and scream and push me, try to push me away, but I still love you. And that's part of this never too lost to be found, is when we start looking at people through God's eyes and saying, God, how do you see your son or daughter? How do you see my brother or sister? We start having a totally different way of approaching people. And the 1134 movement is encouraging people to do that. I actually heard it. I woke up earlier this year and I heard love is 1134. And I was like, okay, God, what does that mean? His love is flipping hell on its head. And we want to do that every single day. That's what Jesus did as he walked this earth. Every moment of every day, he flipped hell on its head. When he was hated, what did he respond in?
With love.
When he was sitting on the cross, 9-inch nails pegged through his wrists, what did he respond with? Love. Prayed for his people for forgiveness. Yeah. When death and sickness were in his presence, he went to the Father and was like, Father, heal him. And he healed. He even resurrected people. And we're asking for people to do this, to not get in the caught in the thought of what would Jesus do? Because that was a great movement. But the problem is that it gets you into thought. Our challenge is that you would actually do what Jesus did. Love people that don't deserve it. Pray for people that you don't want to. Jesus actually tells us to do that, right? Go and pray for the sick. Ask the Father to heal them. Do the things Jesus did. That is the 1134 movement. Flip hell on its head every single day, every single moment, and look for ways to do that.
And you see, oh, all right. I'm going to ask you a question. Think about this when we take a break, and when we come back, I want a response. All of the stuff that's going on in the Middle East, specifically in Israel right now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have college campuses, Ivy League schools that are going absolutely nuts with anti-Semitism. So think about that and how your 1134 concept is a great thing for those people all the way around. So let's take another look at ways to help people.
Life isn't always sunshine and roses. Sometimes it's full of roadblocks. The kind that aren't as easy to fix as filling a hole or repairing a car. Personal roadblocks are another thing altogether. Why do I feel stuck? The same things anger me every time. Why am I doing this anyway? Fixing it yourself can be frustrating and confusing. And if more than one person is involved, DIY might mean destroy it yourself. Maybe it's time for another solution. Steve Reed shines a light on your roadblocks and helps you find the best way forward for you. Stephen Reed Ministries, bringing light and hope for a victorious life. To overcome your roadblocks, schedule an appointment with Steve Reed today.
And I am thrilled to be able to help people, but I'm even more thrilled. I got a special going on. You know, next Friday is Black Friday. Not this coming Friday, next Friday. And this is the first time ever I have done a Black Friday promotion. Recently, I know it is like, wow. So a year ago, I introduced my strategy workbook. It's called Strategies for Success, Success Planning for Professionals. It's not a day calendar. It's nothing of that sort. It's just helping you with your mindset, what's working, what's not working, some goal setting, etc. Well, I recently republished, relaunched it. I did have 30 pages. Now I have 50 pages, and it starts with what is your why? What is your purpose? What is your mission? What is your vision? What are your strengths? a lot of times people say you got to work on your weaknesses. No, you got to work on your strengths and make your strengths even stronger. So between now and the 26th of November, that's the Sunday after Black Friday, if somebody, it's not a deadly thing. If somebody buys, it's a downloadable PDF. If they purchase and download the PDF, 50 pages, if they are interested, I will give them a 1-hour complimentary strategy session. The price on that is $300. So you're getting a $327 program for $27. Now, most people, it's the other way around. Hey, you schedule a strategy session for $300 and I'll give you the workbook. No, it's the other way around. You purchase the workbook if you want a strategy session. Let's peel back the layers. Let's figure out what's working, what's not working, get you ready, not just for 2024, but literally for the rest of your life. All right, so that's more like it. That's
the first one was the suspense was killing me.
Yeah, well, whatever. All right, so Steve, college campuses.
Yeah.
All
Israel.
of the anti-Semitism that is going on college campuses. I mean, not just colleges, but around the world. I mean, there are people that have been elected into Congress that are anti-Semites, and they should be in prison or extradited or whatever, out of the country.
Yeah.
What do you say to all of that?
Well, I'd say that we're all broken. This may not actually be the answer that everybody's looking for, but I would actually say that their sin is no different than mine. That I'm broken. I'm in need of a savior. So are they. And when we look at them and go, man, God, what do you want to actually say to your daughter? They likely have actually believed a lie just like I did. That's what Lies Beneath is all about. So that's this book. It was a 6.5-year journey that God took me on to figure out the foundation of my belief system. I was doing things based on the lies that I had believed. Now, what if somebody actually is told their entire life that Jews are of the devil and that you have to kill them all, you have to get rid of them all, they are the reason why your life sucks? Think about that. If somebody has been taught that their entire life, how do we respond with that? Should we just beat them? Should we actually have the Jews go kill them? Should we have? No, because that's actually doing exactly what they've been taught. What if we just flip it on its head and go, God, how do you want to love on your son or daughter? You know them more intimately than I ever will. What do you want to say to them to reveal the truth? How do we break through the lies and replace them with love? That's why the subtitle to What Lies Beneath is actually Lies to Love. It's actually liestolove.com. That's where you can get the book. That's the whole purpose of it, is flipping these lies on their head and really looking at what he and how he wants to restore things. Now, there is pure evil. I will say there is evil in this world. I totally get that. And how we deal with that, like people ask me about Hitler. They find out that my family are Ukrainian Jews. They understand that my family was persecuted, just like all the Jews were during the World Wars. And they're like, well, what about Jesus? Or what about Hitler? Like, is Jesus his savior too? And he would be if Hitler were willing. But at the same time, the Bible talks about that God hardened Pharaoh's heart, right? So if God hardened Pharaoh's heart, like, who are we to say whose heart God's going to harden, whose he's going to soften? That I don't know. I just need to go after them and say, God, what do you want to say about this? What do you want? How do you want to love on your kiddos? And if we do that, our responsibility is taken care of. It's up to him to then actually restore or have them come to repentance or have them turn to him. But our part is taken care of.
Right. But at the same time, God can take his hand away from somebody.
100%.
And unfortunately, there are some people that are totally misguided and they don't know the truth. So
Yeah.
we've got to speak the truth while we're speaking to them in love.
Yeah.
So
I
it's a double-edged sword.
I would agree with that, but one of the things we need to be careful of whenever we're speaking the truth is a lot of people love to talk about John 3:16.
Mhm.
Right? We see it on eyebrow things. There's popular football players that just love this. But what about John 3:17?
Yeah.
Do we know John 3:17? It says that he didn't come into this world to condemn it, but to save it.
Right.
And if we're actually becoming more and more like Jesus, and our heart is to continue to learn how to be who He created us to be, if our heart is to become the person that He dreamt of outside of the realm of time,
Yeah. Sure.
then we're not here to actually condemn people. Yes, truth is there. And I believe there's this delicate balance of that. But I think when we ask God and we simply say, what do you want to say to this person? That's actually where prophecy comes in. That's
Yeah.
what prophecy actually is actually hearing from God and then speaking it. If we
Yeah.
hear from God and we don't speak it, it's kind of funny. We call it spiritual constipation, because He's plugging in and we're all plugged up and we're just not doing anything, right? But when we walk in that and we hear what God wants to tell somebody and we speak that, that's called prophecy. There's no crazy thing about prophetics, and people aren't weird, because there are some weird people that call themselves prophets. But that's what Paul was talking about in the Bible. He's like, I desire, or my desire is that you would desire prophecy over everything else. I believe that's because we have to hear from God
Yeah.
in order to do it.
Yeah.
So I 100% believe that there is evil in this world,
Yep.
and there's nothing we can do about that. That's up to them to actually make those choices. So,
But all we can do is lead by example. And if they say, well, I'm cursing you, I'm threatening you, I want you eliminated from the face of this earth, but you keep coming at me with I love you. And when you get them to question why, then hopefully they'll take an internal look at themselves and maybe see that they are the problem. And the solution is faith. The solution is, we only have one life on this planet.
Yeah.
Make the best of it. Make this your heaven on earth.
yeah.
All of this reminds me, going back to the college campuses, some of these kids are doing the things that they are doing because they were taught by their professors and their peers to be this way. But some of them, this is what they grew up with. And this is something that has been perpetuated for generations. And I'm reminded of the story about the Hatfields and the McCoys. And it was a multi-generational battle that was going on between these two families. And somebody was asked one time, why are you fighting the other family? He said, I don't know. That's what we always do. They had no clue. They had absolutely no clue. So when some of these kids are yelling all of the repulsive, racist things, from the Jordan to the sea, or whatever the phrases are, which basically says, let's annihilate the state of Israel, the Jewish people, they're probably doing it because they don't know any better, or because it has been perpetuated from generation to generation to generation. And I'm sure that you have dealt with that with your heritage as well, and some of the things in your heritage, your culture. So we've got to change the culture, and we start by changing the minds
Yeah.
and give people an alternative.
Absolutely. My family actually changed their last name, our last name, from Cohen to Carter during the wars, because they were receiving that persecution. My dad couldn't go to school without getting into fist fights. They had to change that because we saw that. But I would even challenge and throw it out there that we're seeing a time of rise of anti-Semitism. But what about just racism in general? What about division in general? What about the church itself? Jesus in John 17 says, God, my heart for them is that they would be united. He's talking about the disciples at that moment, but he goes on in a moment later and he says, and not only for these, but for those who come to me based on their testimony. So his desire is that we would all be united. Yet the Christian church today has how many different denominations? We yell and scream and bicker over every single thing in the world, and it has nothing to do with Jesus. It has to do with our personal preferences and our personal belief systems. But we're not doing what Jesus wants us to do. And when we are willing to actually start looking at people and stop the judgment, stop the division, stop the belittlement, right? We come into this beautiful relationship with we can come into this beautiful relationship with people regardless of their stance, regardless of their beliefs, and then show people the love of Christ. I was actually challenged with something late last year, a statement that God asked me, and it sounds weird at first, but it kind of makes sense. And he asked me, Steve, what tenet of Christianity are you willing to dig deep on? Are you to stand firm on in order for people not to know me? Well, wait a second. What does that mean? He was asking me what my intention was on standing firm on a belief that I had, knowing that it may actually drive people away from Christ.
Yeah.
What am I willing to stand on that's going to tell people that Jesus doesn't love you, that there is no Holy Spirit and God the Father doesn't exist? Like, what am I going to do that's going to reaffirm the lies that they have believed and push them further away from God? What am I willing to do? And I was just broken by that statement.
Yeah. Well, Steve, with that said, we got to go to a break again. But I got to tell you one real quick little anecdotal thing. There's a Christian comedian, songwriter, vocalist. He used to sing with the Gaither Vocal Band. His name is Mark Lowry. And he's doing a concert one time, and he says, okay, how many of y'all are Baptists? And all the Baptists are raising their hands and hooting. Okay, how many of y'all are Pentecostals and are raising their hands and hooting and hollering? How many are Methodists? And they're raising their hands, so forth and so on. He says, you know what's really funny is some of you are wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And God doesn't care. He doesn't divide us up. Oh, no. The Catholics are going here and the Protestants are... No. Anyway, with that said, let's go to a commercial. Let's talk a little bit about OBBM Network.
Entertainment expands your horizons, takes you on fantastic adventures, challenges your skills. Independent media never looked so good. Welcome to a new sphere of influence. Our words mean business. Traditional families are honored, and the American flag still flies.
If you're in Florida, you can find us on Traverse TV. Otherwise, look up the OBBM network on Rumble, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio. And it's not just Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve, but they have a whole other set of like-minded, freedom-thinking shows that will help guide you into improving or making a better life. So check out the OBBM network.
And advertise.
And advertise.
Great opportunity for you to support the network. So, all right. So, Steve, what are some of the other things, the products and services that Now Found is offering?
So we were led to actually start an apparel line recently. We like to actually say that these bamboo shirts, that they're smooth like butter. We actually had one lady, we like recording people and their reaction, because you really can't imagine. You're looking at the shirt here and you're like, oh, it doesn't look any different than another shirt. But we gave it to a young woman, and she just sat there and she was elated, and she hugged it for a second and she said, can you put this on a teddy bear? It's just so soft, so kind of buttery smooth. We have these, we have them that carry our logo, our heart message of never too lost to be found. We have, again, our family initiative. We have a shirt that actually says family, always room for one more, which is really talking about the heart behind adoption and foster care, that we can always actually have room in our home, in our hearts, for one more. And even if we can't maybe house a child, we can always find a way to actually support them. That's one of the initiatives. I spoke about it a little bit earlier. During the month of November, actually, if you buy one of our bamboo shirts or one of our zip-up hoodies, we are actually donating one of our 3 children's books. We have However Long Forever, which is a story about, or a poem about an orca whale. Her name is Amari, which is Swahili for flourishing. And it really talks about whether uncertainty, whether we know the future of a child in foster care or not, whether we're going to have them for a day, a month, or their lifetime, we're going to love them however long, forever. And that was really the message that God gave me with that book. Another one is actually Loved as You Are. So often kiddos come into the foster and adoption system and they try to perform. They want to do things the way that they think you want them to be. The heart message of this book is that they are loved just as they are. We understand things have happened and you don't have to perform for us. But this is really for adoption for kiddos from hard places, whether that's kinship, whether that's foster care, trauma, tragedy, things like that. And then we also have Where Your Beginning Began, which actually is where it all began. This was a poem that just before our youngest was born, God gave my wife this poem, and it really just talks about identity and honoring the birth mom's choice, the beautiful choice for life, but the very difficult choice to find a home for her kiddo other than her own. And recently we actually came out with some companion guides for that to help talk about kind of the depths of the illustrations. There's a lot of stuff in the background. We also encourage communication, conversation with family members, parents, teachers, counselors, support groups, everybody else, to really walk through the book and really open that connection or that communication with the kiddos.
Are you currently connected with any of the crisis pregnancy centers?
So we have a couple in the local area. We are praying about some relationships with some larger ministries that might take these national and even worldwide. We're going to continue to do that. We're actually partnered with Lifeline Children's Services as well, which is a national children's service. We're part of their local banquet tomorrow. We're going to have a booth there and promote them, help them, resource. We love just partnering with a bunch of different ministries. We have Chosen Ones, which is a local place, but we are definitely interested in if there are local chapters of foster and adoptive support groups or ministries that need people to come in and speak or encourage or resource them. We're always open to partnering with even smaller or even more regional ministries as well.
Yeah. I'm friends with the director of an organization in Allen's called Real Options, and amazing organization. They help with women in crisis, and they're saving a lot of babies. Also, personal friends with a guy that came out of the foster world, and he was 18. He aged out of the foster world, and his story is pretty intense. I'll just leave it at that. But it turned his life around, and he's got a great organization, Kevin Kirchen Ministries. So I need to connect you with Kevin as well.
That'd be awesome. Anyway. We also have a couple other children's books that are on their way. My 15-year-old daughter actually felt God gave her a poem as well. So early 2024. We are coming out with a book called Equally Treasured, and it's really talking about the existing kiddos in the household and that beautiful yet difficult transition of bringing somebody in an additional kiddo or additional kiddos into the house, and how happy and elated they are. But also the hard part is parents who bring in new kiddos have to divert some of their energy and time, if not a lot of their energy and time. And that children's book is actually about what that looks like and how to encourage and let them know that all of your kiddos are equally treasured. We also have a book coming out probably later 2024 called Similarly Unique, which is a beautiful discussion about how similar we are. We all have, two eyes, nose, mouth, we all have fingerprints, things like that. But if we concentrate just on the similarities, we forget about our uniqueness. And there's this delicate balance. If we only talk about our uniqueness, we forget about our similarities. So there's this beautiful balance of those two. So those are two books that are coming soon, 2024. We just got to work out all the illustrations. It takes a little time. So
let's, speaking of time, we are almost out of time. Let's go through your contact information real quick. So we've got Steve at nowfound.org.
Yep.
Is your email address. And your website is www.nowfound.org.
That's the one.
And they can also find you on Facebook at fb.nowfound.org.
Yep, we made it easy. It forwards it to them.
And then Instagram is ig.nowfound.org. That's a great way of doing that. That makes it very easy for everyone.
Nice and simple.
So folks, if you want more information about nowfound.org and Steve and his wonderful wife Courtney and their focus on the ministry things, on adoption, all of those sorts of things, reach out to him. I promise you will not be disappointed in having a conversation with them. Ray, you got anything to wrap up?
No. Next week is Thanksgiving, so just try to be thankful for what you've got, and if there's people in need, do a random act of kindness and be a little giving to other people so they can be thankful too. Mr. Cohen, thank you for joining us on our show.
And it's been fun.
Hope we help raise awareness on your mission, and people seek you out and try to kind of put their lives back together themselves.
Thank you.
With that said, it's been a blessing. Y'all have a great remainder of the day. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve. If you have suggestions for topics you would like us to discuss, or you would like to become a sponsor, reach out to us today at tabootalkwithrayansteve@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out the other amazing programs on OBBM Network on all your favorite podcast platforms. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Join us again for another fun and informative opinion-based episode. This is Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve.